Hello and welcome to Texas Talkin, the only show in the Lone Star State where the left gets offended and their enablers clutch their pearls before I even say a word. I'm your host, Shilo Platts, coming to you with a hot mic and an iconic cowboy hat. Tonight, we're talking about something the Beltway elites absolutely cannot stand. A conservative from Texas who actually believes what he says. His name? Briscoe Cain. You've probably heard of him, and if you haven't, trust me, the left has. He's fought the culture war battles that most politicians hide from, defending life, liberty, and the right to say what you actually think out loud without being canceled by a college freshman with a sociology degree. And he's not apologizing for it. Now, for those of you keeping score, Briscoe isn't one of those Republicans who folds and wrinkles like a cheap suit the second the Texas Tribune frowns at him. You see, in a world where too many Republicans treat courage like it's a rental car, drive it once, return it before it gets scratched, Briscoe Cain actually owns his convictions. He's that rare politician who reads the Constitution not as a cute suggestion, but as an instruction manual. And now he's running for the United States Congress, which means Washington is about to experience something it hasn't seen in years: accountability, and perhaps a little bit of fear. Let's be real, folks. Congress these days looks like the world's most dysfunctional HOA. Everyone's arguing over the budget while the House burns down. You've got career politicians in both parties who can't define border security, but can define 72 genders. You've got senators freezing in mid-sentence during press conferences. Some of them truly don't seem to know who or where they are. Enter Briscoe Cain, the human firewall between Texas and tyranny, a man who doesn't need a consultant to tell him what his values are. He's pro-life, pro-gun, pro-Texas, and anti-nonsense. The kind of guy who could walk into a congressional committee, look around and say, "So this is what failure smells like." And look, when Briscoe speaks, it's not poll tested or filtered through some PR firm. It's unapologetically Texan. He's one of those rare conservatives who fights like he actually intends to win, which is refreshing in my mind because most Republicans in D.C. treat fighting like yoga: performative, slow, and deeply ineffective. But here's the real reason his run matters. Briscoe Cain represents that small but growing breed of Texas conservative who's done with excuses, done with half measures, done with pretending the fight for freedom is supposed to be polite. He knows exactly what's at stake, folks: your speech, your faith, your family, and our state. And he's ready to take that fight from the Texas House all the way to the United States Capitol. So tonight, we're going to find out what that looks like. We'll talk about why he's running, what he's fighting for, and how he plans to bring Texas toughness to the most broken institution in America. Grab your coffee or something a little stronger, because it's going to be good. I'm Shilo Platts. This is Texas Talkin', and you know what time it is. Let's get dialed in. And making his return to Texas Talkin' is Texas State Representative and now candidate for United States Congress, Briscoe Cain. Briscoe, thanks for coming back on.
Howdy, Shilo. Glad to be here, bud.
Good to have you. And tell us all what it is in Washington, D.C., I'm sure the list is a long one, that you'd like to fix.
Well, it's certainly a long list, but look, I'll tell you, in a few short moments. I often say I grew up in the shadow of the Sanderson Monument to parents who worked the refineries here, and that's exactly what the new Congressional District 9 is. It's seated on the Houston Ship Channel. The folks that live and work here, their lives are centered around oil and gas and the refineries, and it's a place that's dear to my heart. It's where I grew up. It's where I've chosen to raise my family. It's where I went to school, and so I look forward to going to D.C. to help the president fulfill his promises to the American people. It's really that simple.
So this is a newly redistricted congressional district that you're running for, and Washington, D.C. is just remarkably broken. You, on the other hand, have been a remarkably effective state representative. What are some of the things that you've learned in Austin that you hope to apply to Congress?
Well, it's giving you a place to either make mistakes and learn from the past. And I've represented my House District 128, for a decade. I was first sworn in January of 2017, served 5 terms. My second session, I served as chairman of a select committee on driver's license renewal. And was upset about that. Look, they didn't take my request that they, check with Chick-fil-A how they do it to make our DMV a little better. My third session, I chaired the elections committee, carried the election reform things for the president after the 2020 debacle. That was a massive package. That was in 2021. That was the first time in recent memory for folks when the Democrats broke quorum. They ran off to D.C. that time.
Yep. Chicago this last time.
There you go, and a few others. So we handled that in 2023. My fourth session, I chaired agriculture and livestock. It's when we passed really an overall, essentially what we call the right to farm legislation. Could maybe discuss that sometime. And then this last time, my fifth session, won a chairman. It's probably because I voted for the Republican nominee. That's all right. It turned out that Speaker Burrows ended up doing a pretty good job.
I agree with you.
Owing in part to a large section of reformers that came in, and we finally handled it. I think it was a solid session for Republicans overall.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So let's talk about, I'm not familiar with the right to farm bill. What is that? We've got a couple of minutes. Go ahead.
There you go. Well, we amended the Constitution. That had been 2 Novembers ago. Just like people will be going to the polls to vote for those constitutional amendments now, and enshrined the right to farm in a Constitution. But we also passed a large package of legislation, and just kind of give those of us an idea of you and myself who live in areas where governments haven't yet got that too big for their britches. There were areas in North Texas, for example, that were fining people for if their hay was in the field for more than 5 days. Right. Wow. After you baled hay, you need to remove it. We're passing ordinance saying how tall your crops could be. And so let's say they pass one said it can be no taller than 10 inches. You see, you might have a problem. All in order to get you to develop that property, to stop using it for ag use, because government makes more money off of it if you turn it into businesses and homes. And so what we did is essentially created a strict scrutiny review, meaning it's the highest rung the government has to do in order to infringe on these things. Usually government loses when they can't do it. So they had to show at least restrictive means in order to regulate agricultural use or livestock use, such as auction barns, or how about this? Now, you may not realize this, absent an HOA, people living in cities are allowed to have backyard chickens, all because of this right to farm bill that said, government, get out of the way. People know what they're doing. Just FYI, though, you still have to comply with, sanitation ordinances, right? You can't create a squalor, but it's the idea of protecting our heritage and our history and encouraging people to give it a shot, to try their hand at it, right? We are having a disconnect between our heritage and the grocery store. Folks really not understanding where eggs come from. So let them give that a shot. Maybe they could try carrots. I don't know if anybody's ever grown carrots. It's a very, very difficult thing to do, but to give them kind of a respect for what farmers are going through, and also to protect farmers.
Amen. What are some of the issues that are most important to you, Representative Cain, that you feel are probably not being adequately addressed right now in Washington, D.C.?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the issues that are important to me are also the issues that are important to all Texans, right? We're looking at a government that's a little out of control. First and foremost is to hold the House of Representatives in Congress for the president for his last 2 years in office. That is our primary concern. Things don't move quickly the way we'd like to see there, and we've got to hold it. So that's one reason we're running. Otherwise, though, it's certainly to finish his job, finish securing the border, and to rein in the out-of-control fourth headless branch of government, the administrative state. Certainly a top priority for us as well.
So you just mentioned border security. One of the hot topics that I see a lot about right now is the issue of H-1B visas. What are your thoughts on those?
It really seems like this is something we may need to either completely put on hold or abolish right now. We've got plenty of workers ourselves, American workers. Sometimes people say these are things that people don't have skills in. If we'd allow the market to adjust, we'd find Americans having those skills. And so it may be a temporary moment, but that's certainly something that we probably should explore, is maybe either completely ending it, but at minimum, certainly putting a moratorium on it.
So, in other words, you would agree the status quo as it is now is broken. There's something needs to be done to compensate for this influx of foreign workers that we see in the United States.
Yeah, certainly so, especially what I would call just the fraud, right? If you're hearing about how these ad agencies are,
Yes.
maybe only submitting things by email, right? Which foreign countries are doing, but no one knows, no Americans know how to apply for these jobs. They're very clearly trying to target it. Yeah. So they can say there were no American applicants, very conveniently ignoring that fact.
So we're in the middle of a government shutdown, breaking news. And I hear so many of the thinkers crowing about how we as Republicans need to get better at negotiating or making concessions to the Democrats. My take on it is we need to get better at strengthening our majorities. You may or may not agree, but I'm going to ask you the question. What do you think Republicans can and should do to strengthen our majorities in the United States House and the United States Senate?
There were two questions in there. First, on the shutdown.
Good catch.
The Democrats are trying to make this our fault when we know entirely it's theirs, and they're playing games with American citizens and soldiers' lives, and that's wrong, and it's got to stop. We should not compromise or negotiate with them, but do everything we can to get the government back open properly, of course. And right now, we're seeing some maybe decent results. Seems kind of doji. Right, the president now has the ability to get rid of some of this, maybe this wasteful government that we're finding. But the question of how do we grow our majorities? Well, we're looking at trying to do that right now. In fact, I'll tell you, I think we're heading in that direction. So let's think back when the Democrats broke quorum during the redistricting fight. There's a noticeable pattern. There were 6 Democrats who did not leave town. Well, there's a unique thing for them.
They're along the border, I'm going to guess.
Corpus. There you go. They're all along the border.
Joe Moody didn't even leave.
They're heading in our direction already. Exactly. And so I think we just need to continue to do what we're doing, which is reaching out to that group and actually showing them that we're the party of family values. But more importantly, we're the party of the worker, the working class, the party of citizens having jobs first. Putting America first, I think, is a perfect message. It works. And it's true. No one's faking it. We really, really do believe that America should be first, that American citizens should be first, that American taxpayers should be first. And that's a winning message. So we just keep pushing that winning message.
And I think that's one of the things that President Trump was so brilliant at this past election is building that strong coalition. I don't think you really have to sell the Hispanic community, and my wife is of Hispanic descent, on family values, law and order, many of the things that we believe as Republicans, right? Those are already things that most people in the Hispanic community gravitate towards. So I think you're right. I think we present and communicate our message effectively, and we'll win over a healthy sum of those voters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of those things though is doing what you said you were going to do, right? And so we've got to be able to help the president fulfill his promises, so we can keep winning, right? People, they hear it, they hear the talk, they want to see results. That's a major theme we're seeing right now. They want to see fighters go to Congress. I think say that I'm one of those fighters. I've done it for 10 years and look forward to fighting for them there. But it's showing them that we made promises and we kept those promises.
Finally, Representative Cain, where can our viewers go if they want to learn more about you, and more specifically, how can they help you?
Well, you can find us on all platforms at Briscoe Cain. Our website, of course, is briscoecain.com. And if you'd like to volunteer or chip in $5, you can find it all there on our website at briscoecain.com.
Representative Cain, I want to thank you for taking a few minutes to come on with us tonight, sir. May God bless you, and may God continue to bless the great state of Texas. Thank you for helping us keep Texas talking.
God bless you, Shilo, and that hat is looking good.
Thank you, sir. Stay dialed in to interviews and content just like this by clicking that follow button on my Facebook page, or hit the subscribe button to learn more about exclusive access that you won't want to miss.